Good morning, good morning.
Good afternoon.
No, it's good morning. We just arrived, it's good morning. How are you today? Ollie's a little bit sick. You can see by his face, he's like coughing a lot, but he'll be fine really soon.
Eating some chicken heart.
He loves chicken heart, by the way. Yeah, for everyone, probably that sounds weird, but in Brazil, we eat a lot of chicken heart on barbecues, and that's really normal in our culture. And here is the cheapest meat you can find, and he loves it. That's great.
€2 a package.
€2 the kilo. So let's talking about that. We are gonna talk about the work we have done this week. This week we've done a lot of things to the boat. Not to the boat itself, but there was a lot going on around the boat. Not everything was done because there's a lot of decision making to be done. Yeah, it's hard to concentrate when all is not 100%, but we are gonna try to do that. Don't look too much about, see, my workshop is a really mess right now, and Roberta just saw it for the first time, but that might be a good sign. You can tell when it's a mess like that, that means someone is working, and that's good news. So let's try to organize the thoughts. What did we do this week?
We tried the Sika floor.
That was actually last Sunday. So this is an experiment that we are doing. We went a little bit extra on Sika this time. This is also Sika. That's not Sika Flex, but that's Sika Floor. That's a product that Sika produces to manufacture non-skid decks for cruise ships, for big ships, sometimes for small boats, but mainly for big boats. And we convinced them to give us the raw material for us to DIY that. So they sent us 2 buckets, huge ones, of Sika. That's total of, I don't know, like 13 kilos of Sika.
It's like a flex stick.
Yeah, they don't produce the deck floor. They just manufacture the raw material to sell to the companies like Flex Stick. I'm not saying Flex Stick use Sika. They probably don't. I don't think they do, to be honest. But there are other companies that use Sika, and we said we're not professionals, but I mean, we're good friends. You can, trust us and give us some to try. And if we manage to get a good result, then they're gonna give us many more buckets so we can do the entire deck of the boat. And for that, we are running some tests. So here's a test of what we want to try, and hopefully it works. That is doing panels, standard panels, like just raw one color panel that we can do like 60 by 1 meter, like 60 centimeters by 1 meter. And in this way, we can just glue in parts, and then we can just seal the centers with Sika. That's one of the ideas. Because usually this material is done just like a synthetic tick with one color and then little black stripes.
You have a helper.
Yeah. Yeah, to be honest, the right way to do it is with the stripes, and the reason for that is because supposedly this material is not really non-skid. The non-skid one is the black stripe that helps to be less slippery. But we're gonna run a test first. We're gonna run a flat test, and if it doesn't work, then we're gonna find a way of doing the stripes. We might need to Sika that. We are talking to Robin, the factory where we live, to potentially use their CNC machine to cut the stripes. And also we need to figure out how to have something to release from the foam work. So this is a cheap board with a plywood around, and once it's cured, that's 100% cured already. This has been here for like 5-6 days. We just unscrew the frame around, and then we need to release that. We're not sure yet if this is gonna release well or not. We apply some wax on the plywood, on the cheap board. We're gonna know today after we finish recording this. We're gonna try to see how it went. As you can tell, my level was not perfect. There's too much here, too little there. This product is self-leveling, so supposedly you need to be flat level. I didn't know it was that much flat leveling, auto-leveling, self-leveling.
That's good, actually.
Yeah, that's really good because it's really thick, and I'm like, no, it's not gonna be 100. Yeah, it is 100%. So we try also in different thickness. This is 5 millimeters. That's 8 millimeters. That's 20 millimeters. And that's just on raw aluminum, just to see what happens. I just want to try the adherence to the raw aluminum, because in some areas of the boat, we can actually, instead of creating panels prefabricated, we can actually apply Sika floor directly to the boat. And where it's flat, we can do that. Where it's curved, we cannot do that. So yeah, that's a test.
He's talking.
Can you show them how you walk now? So Ollie walks now. That's pretty cool. Yes, 2/3 for him. Yeah, if you put him on the floor, he's gonna eat aluminum really soon. And also these samples, the thick ones, it's because we want to also try to do like some trimming with synthetic material. That means we can do like a really thick frame around the windows, the hatches, for example, and we need to see if it cures on thick layers or if we need to do in stage. So
On the boat.
it's a test.
The test is
Moving on.
Moving on, we have the name for the boat.
First, no, we're gonna go from that side of the shop out.
Okay, this
So-
is a test for the name.
Moving on, that's a test for the side name of the boat. I'm gonna explain that in a second. We also tried this week because we're trying to use as much as the leftover material as we can because we changed the keel system and the rudder system, and that means we have a lot of aluminum that is just not gonna be used. And for new projects, we're trying to use as much as what we have instead of buying more aluminum. Otherwise, we're just gonna throw away or give to our friend Chris that's also building a boat or selling as scrap that is not worth that much. So in order to do that, I've been cutting a lot of aluminum with the track saw. This track and this saw from Akita. It works really good, to be honest. It cuts really well, but it takes a lot of time because I cannot go to like full thickness of a 15 millimeter piece of aluminum, so I need to do in passes, and my track is not too long, so it takes a long time. So Peter, the welder that's working with us from Robin, said, no, but we have a blade that we potentially could replace the blade of the pano saw, and we could cut that on the pano saw, because we do that on the factory and it works. So he asked authorization for the factory if we could replace the blade of our pano saw, because that's a brand new pano saw that's from the factory. And they said, yes, you can do it, but you just need to do it really slow, otherwise it can be dangerous. So we did a test this week, and as you can tell, there is aluminum all over the place because it works so good. And I'm gonna show you on the board what we use this aluminum for in a second. But that means now, all the aluminum for the keel and boob that was really thick, most of it we can use for other projects. And we already have projects that we need thick aluminum, and that's really awesome because we can just resaw that and have the right dimensions that we need. Moving this way, this is a test sample for the name on the side of the boat. Originally we were just gonna call Odd 43DS, but it sounds like Odd 43DS. It doesn't tell 100% who we are. Oh. Someone is having fun there. Yeah, if we just call Odd 43, a lot of people won't know who we are, and I think it's really cool to have a name on the boat that if someone sees the boat on an anchorage and they're curious about the model of the boat, they can Google and they are gonna find something. And if they Google Odd Life 43DS, they're gonna find us. And that's the idea. And we wanted to take the metal logo out of the boat. We already cut out of the plate, but we needed to have a plate to put in place. And we thought if we carve that, CNC cut that into a plate, no one ever is going to take that out of the boat, and that's pretty cool. Even 40 years from now, it's going to still be on the boat. But in order to do that, we need a really thick plate, otherwise you cannot carve, otherwise it's going to go through. So we got leftover from the keel, and we CNC cut. I don't know if you can see that, but it's so cool. By the way, this is 12 millimeter thick aluminum. That's like almost half-inch thick aluminum. And this was precisely CNC machine at Robin, at the factory. The guy that actually make the components of those machines, he programmed the whole thing, because this machine is like, you need to program by hand. You cannot just send a file and just CNC cut. It's a machine that they actually program on the machine. So he needed to program letter by letter and to create in a way that he can now, it's like parametric, so that means if he wants to CNC cut that really small, he can do. If he wants to do that really big, he can do. And he has the program for Odd Life 43DS. That's pretty cool. And he actually said, oh, thank you that you asked me to do that, because that's something that I didn't know how to do, and I studied a little bit, and now I learned something new, and also I'm on my free time programming every single letter of the alphabet. And that means from now on, I will be able to print any name I want with this letter, and that's pretty cool. What else? Oh, he's having fun.
It's working.
Yeah. So this week also arrived some hardware. That's the huge hinge for the swing platform. We have here all the locking mechanisms and hinges and everything for the outside of the boat. So for the lazarettes, for the bow locker, for the platform, every single one with gas struts, everything is here, and that means soon we're going to be able to finish all the lazarettes, and that's really hard work, but we'll get there eventually. I also arrived some more Sika. Sika Power 880, also not Sika Flex. So back in the days, for us, Sika was just Sika Flex. That's it. Sika Flex is Sika Flex.
In Brazil.
The reality, what?
In Brazil, mainly we know Sika Flex.
Yeah, I mean, like the normal boat owner just knows Sika Flex, but the truth is they have so much more products than Sika Flex. Of course, we're still gonna use Sika Flex, but it's not time for that yet. But they have like the Sika Floor, that's really good. They have Sika Power. Sika Power is for the car industry. If you buy a Land Rover, most of the plates are not welded because it's really thin aluminum, and if you weld really thin aluminum, you deformate too much the car, so they prefer to bound together, to glue together, and that's the glue they use. So this is all industrial glues that mostly they sell for the car industry, and they said for you guys you can use, and this we want to run a test because all our furniture are going to be glued to the boat. We need to glue supports for the walls, for the cabinets on the whole of the boat, and we want to start doing these tests. So lately I work during the week with Peter, the welder, from the morning to the afternoon. I'll go home, I do research, I send emails, I talk to sponsors, I talk to whatever I need to do, or buy stuff, or try to find solutions. And on the weekends we do tests like the Sika Floor, and the next test we need to run is also this new epoxy resin from Sika also. So the idea is to get plywood, seal with epoxy resin, Sika Brie resin CR87, so that's impregnating resin that's really thin to go really deep into the wood. And once we do that, the wood becomes a composite, and then we glue to the boat using Sika Power. That's the idea. And having that, then we can screw anything we want to the boat, because an aluminum boat we cannot start making holes on the aluminum, so we need to glue things. On the back, this huge box and that is the bow thruster. That's pretty cool. So we're gonna use the bow thruster from the company called Sleipner. This company is from Denmark, if I'm not wrong, and they are a family business for over 113 years, I think, or 117 years. It's freaking amazing. They're a huge producer of motors, electric motors for bow thrusters. They didn't start as bow thruster, but really soon they went sideways and went to start doing bow thrusters. That's the huge tunnel of the bow thruster. That's one of the next projects on the boat. And then we need to create two big holes on the sides, weld the tunnel, and then put the bow thruster on top. And we are waiting to arrive this week the support for the motor itself that didn't arrive yet. Inside here, yeah, other than the mess, I think that's it for projects for now. Now we can go inside the boat. But first let me show you where this is gonna sit actually. Maybe you didn't understand this plate. Sorry for the messy video, it's just we just had lunch and I'm a little bit tired today. It was a long night. Ollie woke up many times during the night. So this plate is gonna sit right here. So imagine this is the side of the boat. So this is gonna be on the side of the roof. Used to be the Meta sign here. We cut that off, and this plate's gonna sit here. A little bit proud of this one. It's not gonna be flush. I want it to look like it's sticking out a little bit. I think it's gonna look better. And also because if we want to do it flush, 100% sure guarantee we are gonna mess it up, because it's gonna deform this plate and you're gonna see something that doesn't look good. If we do it this way, we can have stringers on the back, and hopefully we can manage to, Peter can manage to weld and not deform the plate, and it's gonna look just awesome. By the way, the color of the boat is gonna be this color. This was sanded already. This was not sanded.
We have a lot to do.
We'll do that someday in the Caribbean, probably. I don't know. We'll see. That's so awesome. And I really like, because it's like 4.5 millimeters deep, the cut, and that means it's gonna create a lot of contrast, because in the end of the day, what we see, our eyes see, it's always contrast. That's all we see light.
It's the shade.
And if there is a shade inside because the sun cannot get inside, that means there is contrast and you can read from really far away. I don't know if you can read there. The camera won't tell.
We were seeing before.
Yeah, we did a test on the factory.
Like
We walked like, I don't know, like 20, 30 meters
this.
away, and you can see really well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Moving on.
Moving on. So this, by the way, is all the raw material. So these are the plates for the boob, the old boob of the boat. So this plate was one of these ones. So so I cut the square and I just CNC machine the rest. We have all the plates here now because we are thinking on producing frames for the portholes. We want to do a really heavy duty frame for the portholes because you get waves, and I feel weird just to have a acrylic glue to the side of the boat because it can fall at some point.
Just
So we
one
want to
thing. Ollie's going home with grandma now.
Yeah, so, yeah, by the way, my mom is here, so that's why Ollie's not here. He's not walking alone around. Yeah, so the idea is to use this material now with the panel saw to cut stripes and to create the frames that is going to be a heavy-duty frame with a ring around so we can clamp the acrylic and there is no way that can fall from the boat. That's the idea.
Luca has been studying this for a while, and this is the idea for this week.
No, and also it's not just studying, it's like getting to talk to the right people at Roblin
Yeah.
to do that, because we need to have a machinist to do that. And the guy that did this, he's freaking amazing. Just so you understand, everything we do at Roblin we pay for now. We talked about it in a past update video. Roblin was part sold to someone else, and that means now it's a lot more restrict everything we do. So that means to do that was not free. We pay like hourly rate. We pay exactly what the professional costs to the company. If his salary is, I don't know, 50 euros an hour,
Like Peter.
no, yeah, it's not his salary because there is like the governmental salary, the pension, blah 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 blah. If his total cost for the company is 50 euros an hour, like the welder, that's how much we pay. And this guy is so nice that the other day he was supposed to, like 2 days ago, he was supposed to stop working at 2 p.m. I went there to his workstation at 4 and he was still there working. I'm like, oh, so how many hours is it taking to do that? And he's like, oh, no, don't worry. I stay overtime today, off clock, so you don't need to pay because it's just my free time. I just stay after work to do, so you don't need to spend too much because it's too many hours of programming to do this. And that's like, it's mind-blowing. He literally just wants to help us on his free time, and that's really awesome. But of course, part of the job was done during his work hours, and then he needs to write it down and we need to pay. And that's fair. That's we're taking the employee from doing his other jobs, and that's just fair. But
At least we have the option of
at
doing
least we have the
that.
option, and it's right here, like literally in the same lane as the
Yeah.
boat. And that's why we didn't make the decision before to make the frames for the portholes, is because we didn't know where we were going to do it. And now that we saw that's possible, I talked to him, I explained to him the project. He's like, no, it's good, because one problem of reusing this material is that we need to weld together in order to get the size we want. And every time you weld, you deform, you bend, you warp, and the window needs to be that flat, otherwise it's gonna leak. So the idea is we can weld a frame together, even with deformation, there's no problem. And then we get the frame is a little bit oversized, we take to the machine shop and we machine the top to be that flat, and then it's guaranteed that it's not gonna leak. That's pretty cool.
Okay, let's
So
go
now
to the
let's
boat
go.
and see what's...
I'll leave this, remember that it's here. So the frames I mentioned is these ones. These ones. So we originally had 4 long ones, 2 in the bow, 2 in the center of the boat.
1 meter long.
Yeah, that's
right?
1 meter by 17 centimeters. That would be, I don't know, like 4, 5, 6 inches, I guess. But I kind of regret this shape. I understand the thought behind the designer. That is, if you have this hole is too high, the freeboard is too high, and if you have a long window, it makes the boat looks longer. It has the feeling of being longer. But at the same time, I think it's such a long window for the bow where you can hit a dock or whatever. So the idea is that we are gonna actually divide that in two. We're gonna create a centerpiece. We're gonna have two of 40 by 17. And then we're gonna have the frame behind, and we're gonna create a centerpiece, and we just need to try to bend this back to the. It's not.
Yeah, it's another thing. Like here is a little bit curved, so it's better to have two instead of one. That's
the curve is gonna be much more complicated to create the frame for the hatch with a big curve.
Yeah.
And if we do it smaller, it's gonna have less curve. And also today's problem that we need to try to fix that you cannot see from here, but this plate is more flat here than here. When they bent the side plate in position, because of the hole, it moved it differently here and here, and that's gonna make life a lot harder. So I'm gonna try to hammer this a little bit down and see what happens. We're gonna try to have both angles as close as possible. That's the idea, but we'll see.
Going up.
Going up.
Okay.
What did we do this week? What didn't we do? So, let the train pass first.
No, you can.
The main problem this week, the roof you've seen before, right?
Yes.
The roof, yes, you've seen before. So, when the boatyard start building the roof, they didn't want to fully welded the frames. When I say fully welded the frames, I mean have the frames for the windows, for the glazing, fully welded around, because they said there is no need for that because the Sikaflex is gonna seal that. Even though I really like Sikaflex, I don't believe. Okay. So, can you see the frame here? This is 6 millimeters, and that's 24 millimeters. The glass is gonna be sitting right here to the edge, and you have literally 6 millimeters of Sikaflex to guarantee that the water won't go in. If this first 6 millimeters, trying again, and that means if this first 6 millimeters of Sikaflex for some reason fail, you're gonna have water through the frame, and that is not acceptable for me. I think for the kind of boat we are building, we need frames that are fully welded. And the reason they didn't want to do that is because they knew they were gonna bend all over. The heat of the aluminum, it bends the hatch, the frames. And I do understand that, but at the same time, you need to find a way of doing it. I've seen many boats that are fully welded, and somehow they find a way of doing it. And the truth is, I thought they were straight. And even though they're not fully welded, they were already all bented, like all curved. You could not see with your eyes, but as soon as you put a straight edge in, you can see that they're bent. And that's really good. Let me see if I find a straight edge. So what I mean by bent, this should be flat, and it's not flat. What that means is this is not a straight line, that's a curve. And that's terrible for gluing the glass in. We are trying to slowly put them back in position at the same time fully welding. So right now, every window is fully welded, even though they're not 100% straight. We are trying to make sure they get straighter. And the reason why they're not straight is not, to be honest, because of the weld only. It's also because of the weld, but not just because of the weld. The problem is, I don't know if you are following that, but if it's too confusing, but I don't know. I just feel like explaining to them. The deck of the boat is round like this, right? Compared to the design, when they built the deck, the height from this point in the center to the bottom of the boat was 20 millimeters higher than was supposed to be.
2 centimeters.
2 centimeters, almost an inch. And that's a lot for an aluminum boat. That should be on the millimeter. And what does that mean is that if the deck has not the right shape, when you put this front panel in place, it's not gonna fit. When they put this front panel in place, it would touch in the center, but you would have a gap like this high on the ends. and that means something needs to be done. You either need to fix the deck, or you need to fix the plate, or you do like Meta stupid did, that is not fix anything and just hammer and force in position with a chain. So what they did is to weld a lot in the center and then just put pressure and push it to the right position down, and then weld it, and then somehow it stay kind of in place or goes halfway back. And it stays in place, and if you see with your naked eyes, you're like, oh, that's all good. But it's not, because when you do that, you create a lot of internal tension because the material wants to go away, but the weld is holding it in position, and that means something is going to be deformed. And that's how all the frames got deformed, because they moved the plates around way too much. And that's the main problem about the deformation is the tension of these side plates was insane high, and we are trying to fix for the whole week. That's the main job we've been doing. The little bend on this plate also, there's another problem. If you see a gap here and you see a gap here, that means the frame is not vertical, it's like crooked. That's why we cut this weld, and now we're forcing this into position and then welding these again to make sure we have faces that are parallel. Here you can see that it's already so goodish. No, not this one. These ones you need to fix. Some of them are fixed already. Yeah, this one's fixed already. Perfect. There is a tiny little millimeter. That's good enough. Yeah. But it needs to get to this standard at least. So it's been a freaking nightmare. We literally got to a point that we needed this center was literally like curved like this. We needed to cut in half, put a straight edge on the other side, like 70 millimeters, like really thick one, weld in position, and then put a reinforcement. I don't know if you can see.
A lot of trains today.
Yeah, that's the train. I don't know if you can see how thick is this stiffener. That's my finger.
It's like 1 inch.
Yeah, that's 15 millimeters stiffener. That's like way too big. And the reason for that is because we try with an 8 millimeters that's already thick, and it doesn't hold the shape, because the stiffener needs to be stronger than the internal tension of the material that they create by bending the plate all over the place. So the only way we found to get like closer to good, to perfect, not perfect, but like close enough, was to add this really, really big reinforcement. That's, we added like easily like, I don't know, 5 kilos to the boat, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, otherwise the windows are gonna leak. So we added this reinforcement, that, and now we're adding to the sides also. So this is a project that is not done yet. We're
it was not on the list of things to do, and now it's like the second week of working on this job.
Yeah, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. We're not gonna give up. We need to build the boat. We need to build a boat that we can be proud of it, and that the windows doesn't leak. And the way for the windows not to leak is to have actually flat.
The string.
Yeah, true.
I didn't see that.
So we had this stringer.
I haven't seen this one. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so I didn't realize that when they sent the boat, there was a stringer, but the stringer is supposed to be one bar like this and one T in front, and there was no T. And there was no material for that. They never told me that there was missing, but looking at the 3D module, and I'm like, it feels like there's something missing. I'm like, oh, the T on the string. So we add the stringer all over the place. Yeah, we've been working on the roof a lot this week, and a lot of the time it's just like half of the day, me and Peter looking to each other is like, where do we go from here? It just we try everything to keep the shape, and it doesn't.
Should we do some holes on the bottom for condensation?
Not sure if we're gonna do spray foam. Doesn't make any sense. So yeah, this is the main job for the week. That I hope by this week we are done. That's the idea. And also we've been working on something else. So once that is done, we are going to move on to build the finishing around. So that's the thickness of the straight edge we put in front to hold the shape so we can weld. That's 70 by 30.
Okay.
So we need to add this here. That's a modification design. So this is only like 50 millimeters high. It used to be like 120, like it's way too much. This is more than enough, so we need to do all around the roof, and then we move on to do the logo part, and then we finish the roof 100%.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah, that's how high it used to be. That's way too high. We've been working on the weekends. I don't know if you can see the white thing there.
Oh yeah,
on the
you
bulkhead.
fixed that.
Yeah, there is a white paint there. That's how I call it?
Really?
Dye penetration test to see if the weld there is any fading point. And we wanted to test all the bottom welds on the bow locker, and the reason for that is because the bow locker used to be full depth, and that means you need to have a bilge pump because the bottom is under the water line, so you need to have a bilge pump. And we don't want to have a bilge pump on the bow locker because you always have water there and it's going to be water sitting there. So we wanted to raise the floor higher than the water level, the water line, and have drainage to the outside. And in order to do that, before we close underneath the floor, we need to know if the welds are good and if there's any leak so we can fix. So we did the penetration test, and luckily there is no fading welds to the outside, but there was one big fading in between the chain locker and the inside part of the boat on the forward bulkhead. So
It's fixed.
yeah, Peter fixed this week, so that's why the penetration test, that's the second one, and it doesn't show anything anymore, so it's fixed.
That's
And
great.
now we can build the floor. We already have all the stringers cut and prepared to make a structure for the floor, and then we're gonna create a template and create the bottom plate. And once we do that, we're gonna watertight the floor, create the drainage, and underneath it could be both ways. It could be just a seal box that is a crash box that you cannot access, but I don't like the idea of having such a big space that can have condensation inside and you cannot see what's happening. So the idea is to just create a inspection hatch underneath on the bulkhead inside of the forward cabin. So we're gonna have like just a round hatch that we can access the inside. Yeah, that's the next project, and the roof, and from there maybe swim platform, I guess. We still didn't decide the frames of the hatches, so that's another thing. So this is the original frame of the hatch that is based on odd. Odd was like that. That is a frame sticking out, as you can tell, it's warped as hell. So the idea is that the screw doesn't go through the deck, the screw is outside. That's exactly how Odd was. That was my idea to the boatyard, but the execution of my idea, it looks just like insanely terrible. I don't even know why they grind it here. They should just leave the weld. That looks better than grinding like this. This is warped. There's no way I can seal a hatch with this frame. So we are rethinking the idea if we rebuild that in a better way but the same solution, or if we do, I don't know, a thick plate here and then the screw doesn't go through, it's just tapped in position. I'm not sure if I like, because to be honest it's really easy to get a stainless steel screw stuck with electrolysis in between the thick plate and the screw. So I'm not sure. Maybe we do the same, but
Because
with a little bit.
if we do like this as Odd, we have a washer and a...
No, it could be just tapped here also.
Yeah, but it's easier to fix if you
No,
have a problem.
if
It's
water
easier
goes
to
inside,
fix.
there is a way to go out. It's different when you
Yeah.
tap, but there is open on the bottom than when it's like stuck inside. I don't know. We'll see. That's a decision that I need to. I've been studying a lot about that.
We are also doing a test with Sika to do like some kind of finishing around.
Yeah, the thick Sika that we are testing. That's the reason for that. Is because if we do it this way, we can always use the thick Sika to create a frame around the frame,
Finishing.
and then it's gonna just look like solid, not gonna look like this. And then if you need to fix, you just take the Sika out.
Because on Nod we had the first project from the boatyard was to use some kind of wood around, and that's where we found some rust on Nod,
Yeah.
because they had wood around, and the humidity was too bad, and there was rust around.
Yeah, that's basically the only place we found rust on oil was where the wood frames were sitting, because wood holds humidity.
Yeah.
That's why I like the composite Sika material. That's not wood. Doesn't hold water.
Yeah.
Of course, if you do it in a bad way, it can water can get in between and then stay there. But maybe we can do it in a way that it can drain the water. I don't know. We'll see. That's I don't know. We're still thinking about that.
I think that's it for this week, actually.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot, to be honest. Yeah, it's just really busy, and it's sometimes moved not as fast as we wish. And the reason for that is because we don't have the solution. It's just like hard to build a boat when you're not in a boatyard. It just takes longer.
I thought I could be editing while Duca's mom is here helping with Oli, but I need to study Italian because I need to get my Italian citizenship through Duca. I don't know if I told you this before. And I'm studying Italian a lot because my test is on the beginning of December. So on my free time, I'm studying.
Yeah, a lot of people asked, why didn't you go to Annapolis Boat Show this year? One of the reasons is because we're moving really well with the boat, so we don't want to leave the boatyard right now. But another reason is because Roberta's visa to the US is expired. And right now, with this crazy relationship in between Trump and Brazil, I doubt they would renew. It's risky to ask for a renewal of her visa, and that can be because I mean, like, they can just, I don't know, just renew, but they can say no, we don't want to do it, and then it's going to create a lot of trouble in the future to get a new visa. And
it's easier as Italian.
I have double citizenship. I'm Brazilian and Italian, and Italians don't need visa to the US as a tourist, so I can just go to the US.
Just an authorization for 2 years, it's valid.
By the way, Oli is also Italian now.
Yeah,
officially.
Italian.
So Oli got approved to be Italian. They treat him as Italian since he was born, as he's my son, but he needed to have his documents on the Italian embassy and whatever. Now he's Italian. Now next one in line is Roberta, so she's studying for the exam because she needs to prove that she speaks Italian.
I need to speak and to write.
Can you speak to them in Italian? Yeah, just do it.
Ciao.
Just say something.
We have some Italian patrons.
Just say something now. No? Just say something. See, that's how they say I talk too much, but Roberta never talks because she don't want to talk.
Qualcosa. Something.
Okay, something. Okay, we see you guys on next week's episode. So next week is a real episode, and next week's episode is about the cockpit.
The first welding.
We're still not done with that. It's almost edited, but we're still not finished with that.
It's hard because Duca was working with the welder. It was the first week of a lot of things happening.
Yep.
And it was hard to edit this one.
Yeah. So we're going to do next week an episode about the cockpit, and then in the next week we'll do another update for you guys, hopefully with a lot of good news. That's what I hope. We'll see. And then the next one I think is going to be about the bow deck that we already mentioned that it was a lot of trouble, a lot of problems, and then we go to the problem of the roof. It's one problem a week. I mean, one problem every other week. See you guys in the next one.
See you.
See you.
Bye.